Yeah, welcome. Hi, Ann. And Ronnie touching on it. Yeah, welcome to the InterGalactics Subtle Bodybuilding, the Blossoming of the Heart. And this actually is a continuation. We haven't done this particular series in a bit, but there was an interrelated or related session. I think some people were there, maybe Carol and Ann, where we did the lower pillar, working with the intergalactics for subtle bodybuilding. But you didn't have to do that one to do this one. And this is just coming up now as things, just try to tune into the energies that are being able to come through or facilitated now through myself or through the field that are presented here. So since it's our first session, it's a three-part session. They're not on consecutive days. I think people probably noticed that. But just to reiterate, it'll actually restart up again next Monday and Tuesday. So we get a little bit of a break, which sometimes is helpful in case you wanted to either just integrate or practice, or there's a little bit of some time in between the first and the second and third session. But since it's our first session, I'll say a little bit about the intergalactics and the subtle bodybuilding, where this particular session is going. Uh, just to say what was in the last session was building kind of the lower dantian or the belly region. Is very good for grounding, kind of etheric vitality. It's our will aspect, acting in the world. And there was also some building and some practices of building the lower pillar, kind of which is homologous to our upper pillar. And that's also very helpful to build and not neglect if, in this kind of sort of theoretical possibility, although it does happen if someone's sort of on the spiritual path and focused more on sort of the more higher frequencies, higher dimensions, sort of that divine light that's coming through, which is, of course, good. But to the neglect of sort of the in the world aspect, the physical world, then that can get reflected, or things are basically reflected in our subtle bodies. And so it's possible that the upper chakras and this upper pillar here is very well built, very conductive. But then it might stop, like it might stop, it could stop here just at the head, could stop that development at the heart. And then the lower chakras tend not to get developed and that lower pillar. We might see that actually in certain spiritualities where sometimes it's just demonstrated, like where sex tends to be taboo. It doesn't tend to be in esoteric practices so much. It can happen, but more exoteric religions. We may have actually grown up in a religion like that. And so things may stop, if you look at it from the subtle bodybuilding point of view, it kind of stops at the heart. Like things below are either taboo or just neglected, or they kind of go into the shadow. And that's the whole, if you were to call it a problem, I guess it is considered a problem. If you are in that sort of environment, we're biological beings, meaning all these chakras are going to be firing. So if your lower chakras are put in neglected or considered taboo, they don't go away. It's almost like saying eating is taboo. It won't go away, so it has to go into the shadow. And those forces, of course, are very strong. It could actually be one of the strongest or most strongest energetic biological forces we have, our lower chakras. So then they'll come out in ways that we're not conscious of or not in full control of. And of course, we probably see examples of that. But so maybe that was one of the reasons we started with the kind of lower pillar. People probably have been working on that, and also the lower chakras. We've done that in all the different meditations, with the usually these shorter programs where we kind of try to meditate the heart, the head, the heart, and the belly region. Um, but that is not the only place to start. In fact, the heart is usually the subtle body center, at least from, for example, the Rosicrucian esoteric Christian tradition and other traditions too. They feel like starting and building from the heart center first and then outward is actually the most balanced, version or balanced form. Yeah, so just to kind of conclude the lower pillar, so we want to take a lot of that shadow element of the lower pillar and bring that to light. Of course, each of these centers have what we might call shadow elements that we can bring to the surface, but we also want to harness the energy of the lower centers. Like I said, it could be probably one of the strongest energetic forces that we have, particularly when we're incarnated. And you can turn that to actually helping to build your subtle bodies. I know some people here were in the inner fire training. That was basically different forms of what they call tumo breathing. That's a very direct technique of how you actually can turn the kind of our kundalini or lower chakra energies into like a spiritual, literally a subtle body pursuit, kind of accelerating your subtle body development. And this is now getting into the general discussion of, why we're working on these three centers. So each of these centers alone, if you just build them by themselves, uh, can give you advantages. But they also, if not built kind of together or coordinated also, then they will tend to, if that's your spiritual path, let's say, which I just assume people here that would be sort of their interest or goal. If you overemphasize any one center over the other two, and again, this is head, heart, and belly, and they call those the three astral centers. Eventually, your life or life will force you to balance them, but you'll be in an unbalanced state. So I'll kind of mention in brief, because I have mentioned this in other classes, so people might be aware of this, but just as we're kind of unfolding here. So if you really build up your lower centers, you kind of have a vivacity for life, physical life. You can do things. But if the heart and the head aren't there, the head tends to direct things, so it may be undirected, kind of just living for the moment, so to speak. And if the heart isn't there, then it can be the term I've heard or probably fits is ruthless. Like when your lower chakras are the only thing sort of leading the way, because like the root chakra, of course, is involved with survival in the physical world, is one description, then you'll tend to sort of walk over people in order to gain your goals, and you usually have a lot of power too, because your belly lower centers are built sort of that vitality and energy. So eventually that doesn't really that'll kind of give us the lessons that are needed to balance things. So any extreme of these can last for a certain amount of time. It could even last a lifetime. Maybe in our other lifetimes we highly developed one of the centers, but also maybe came to some understanding that that wasn't the final answer. So that's usually the lower centers, it can tend to be violent also, because it doesn't have the balancing of the heart. So this is really the, survival, that deep survival sense, and also kind of taking advantage. Even this idea of like, it's been brought up in other classes, but like eating, basically eating others, whether that be physical, energetic, emotional, mental, causal, spiritual, or even on a divine kind of misconstrued level. And then the maybe the sort of the caricature, I don't know if archetype is the right word. I guess we could use the term archetype is maybe the ruthless leader or the ruthless yeah, kind of just kind of maybe very successful in what they're doing in the world, but sort of just you know willfully takes things over. So that would be overdeveloped lower center. We'll also talk about the balanced ones, but we're just kind of going along in this way. We'll shift now to the head center. We're going to work with all these centers in this 3-day session, but the focus will be emanating from the heart and building from the heart. But the head center is really the thinking center. It's our higher clairvoyant center. So if we took it from that tact, let's say you were on a spiritual path and for whatever reason, you only really, maybe the practices and maybe even that organization or school was very, really developed this head center. Again, this could be a caricature, but then you could be highly clairvoyant, could see auras, see people's chakras system, could, see into their physical body, but energetically, so like medically diagnose things and so forth. But that also tends, because let's say the heart isn't built, let's just say for that purpose, you can maybe you've encountered someone like this, maybe you've encountered yourself like this at some point. Of course, we're not there anymore, right? But I'm playing around. But we're just speaking from personal experience. But you can tend to be cold because they're, usually focused up here, even maybe focused in the center of the between the eyebrows, and then these lower centers are not as strong, or maybe even not even developed as much. Again, this caricature idea to kind of get the sense of it. So their gaze is very penetrating, literally. It can pierce into your field with their energy that's emanating from these highly developed head centers, but there's no warmth to that. So they could be very accurate. They could be very accurate in their perceptions and in their clairvoyance and so forth. But what's interesting as an energetic mechanism that I've mentioned is, we're really one big energy field, interconnected. So that's why, like, building any of these one centers alone eventually will force you to build the other centers. It could take a while, though. We could be stumbling along. So we kind of want to proactively do that. But supposedly, these centers can't open the head centers fully until the heart center also gets open. And Rudolf Steiner mentioned that. Master Chokoku Sui mentioned that. These are just people I've studied with. Of course, Robert Gilbert mentioned that, really drawing from Rudolf Steiner's work. And what Rudolf Steiner was mentioning is that there's this rose pink prana that's released when the heart center, which is kind of our focus, 12, usually in that system, his system, he's presenting 12 sectors or 12 lotus petals of the heart chakra. So when that's either more fully opened or fully opened, I'm sure it's like a process rather than either or, closed or open. Then it sends actually this pink prana up the central channel to the center of the head, particularly the pineal and pituitary glands or energy centers. And then that allows the higher centers these higher chakras to open. And I don't know if Master Chokoku was studying directly Steiner's work, but if anyone's done their main meditation, or kind of their bread and butter meditation, is called Twin Hearts. You first focus on the heart chakra and like you bless the earth, and you focus on the crown chakra and bless the earth, and then you focus on the heart and crown chakra and bless the earth. That's one of the main sequences in that meditation. So that wasn't by random chance. So even at a moment to moment level, what Master Chokoku, I think clairvoyantly had determined is if you just were to focus on the crown center, like let's say that's straight out your meditation, the crown chakra can only open to a certain level. You know, anytime you put your awareness and energy on an area or a chakra, it will activate, it'll get bigger or more active temporarily. It's kind of like an acute effect. But if you first focus on the heart center and do things at the heart center, then you focus on the crown, it actually can get, like 3 times, 4 times, really a lot bigger energetically. So that sequence in Twin Hearts is intentional. Heart, then crown, then heart and crown is an alchemy, the last portion. So it's not just on a long-term basis, like what Rudolf Steiner was presenting, but even on an acute basis, there's a mechanism here. But in this caricature, maybe someone, for whatever reason, spent a lot of time in the head center, maybe either didn't know or hadn't gotten to the other centers, and built that up. And our culture, depending on kind of the schools or the places you gravitate to, tends to be a mental culture. We highly prize in certain areas, like academia or just any schooling, capacity to think. And Master Chokokusui actually says some of this in his books, that for childhood education, which we all came through, maybe we have children or know of people going, at that age, when it tends to be all mental and they don't develop any morality or, the heart area, or we call it now emotional intelligence to kind of take it out of maybe spirituality or religion. So basically, math, reading, writing, it's all here in traditional education, then that can lead to major problems when those children become adults or start to take on leadership roles. So then they don't have the heart center to balance things out. And modern education will tend to probably also build the will center. The Of course, things are much more progressive depending on where you are, and now the realization that the emotional intelligence is as important. But if you get just the head and just the belly, yeah, you can be very successful in this world, but then it can lead to sort of maybe what we've seen with big companies or unethical behavior. Of course, we have a lot of examples to see now, but those are all reflections of, what it can happen or what happens inside us in a way. Okay, so that's the head center. And finally, we're kind of taking this a little bit from the negative view, but it's good sometimes to see what happens when things are lopsided, because then you can see through contrast why to develop these centers in a balanced way. And also, maybe this heart-centered approach is perhaps a very safe and balanced way to start. But you could just be heart-centered. Like, we'll just take that as the caricature example. So let's say you don't develop the head at all, you don't develop the belly, and you could keep developing the heart center. In some ways, you're safer. You become a very safe person to be around because you have a big heart, very loving. Again, I'm not sure this can actually happen, although you may see examples. But it probably won't be your end goal because your soul will force you, particularly if you're in this world, physical world, to develop the other centers. So if you don't have like the lower center built, you're trying to keep these balanced and connected. And maybe the primary one is from the heart, is a suggestion here. You tend not to be able to do things in the world. So even though you're very kind, very loving, usually the archetype is the saint. But many saints had all three centers highly developed. It's just sort of where the emphasis was. It's very difficult to do things if your lower center isn't in place, and also to thrive in the physical world. So what can happen is in any particular lifetime, probably not so much now is the goal, but you could have highly developed one of the centers, and then someone else takes care of the function of the other centers. So, like if you could see the example, and maybe we felt like you could have had a past life like this, possibly, where you are in a monastic environment. So you could focus on the head center, the heart center, and then someone else was taking care of your living in the physical world. Like you didn't have to earn a living. And maybe in that era, if you had to take care of your living, you wouldn't have been able to do anything else because maybe it was very agrarian or even hunter-gatherer or something of that nature. So, you're just trying to survive 24/7. So it's hard to do contemplative work or spiritual work. So that was probably, due to very good karma to end up maybe in a monastery or maybe not. Maybe you regret that. But again, we're not talking from personal experience or anything. But so someone else is taking care of your lower centers, providing you food and so forth. But now the goal probably is, if you're incarnated in this modern world, is to develop all these centers on your own. To maybe we were highly developed in one or even all three, but they weren't connected. Um, so the heart center, also, if it doesn't have, like, what happens when the head center is not there, then you're loving, you're kind. Again, these are caricatures, but you may not know exactly what's going on because the head center is also awareness of what's going on and not very directed in what you're doing. So, like, let's say, so you may not be as effective in terms of helping other sentient beings, although you may really want to. And but the head center is also necessary to be able to direct that energy, plan, things, and so you can, do more in terms of your service when you also the head centers are kind of this executive control. So that's what happens when things get unbalanced and how that happens. And we'll continue this discussion on day 2 and 3 with the positive aspects of each of those. But since I brought it up, usually the archetype for the heart center is the saint. The archetype for the head center, when that's sort of leading, is the seer, the person who can see clairvoyantly or kind of the reader, so to speak. And then uh, the belly center is the magician. So the person kind of can manipulate the energies for manifestation. So we're going to move into the kind of the transmission now. Just that was sort of one aspect of the introduction, kind of highlighting these three centers. So this particular day or this transmission is focused really on coordinating the heart center. It's more heart center focused, and then the other day 2 is more like making the connection from the head to the heart, and then day 3 is like the heart to the belly, and then really coordinating all three, and that occurs through the central channel. So we'll do the transmission, and then afterwards we'll do some energy practices and meditations that you can adapt or bring into your practice. The idea with having a transmission is you're sort of asking the higher beings, your higher self, to download the patterns into your system. But it's a little bit, then you actually have to like act to bring those patterns out, to accelerate them. It would be similar, like, like you download a really good exercise program, which is maybe you pay a trainer a lot of money just to get that. But then, they don't actually go with you to train. But the only way to actually change your body is to do that program. So when you do meditations or energy practices, then it's like doing the exercise, the physical exercise, but at least you know what to do that would be most effective. And it's sort of, since that program's in you energetically through the transmission, it accelerates it. So it's kind of, these are complementary. You want to do both, in your spiritual practice. Like transmissions are great, but You also need to you want to also practice so that you can bring that program out. So the second half is more doing those practices, whether that's certain breathing practices in addition to, focused on certain centers. And that has both practical value. That's sort of why this program, there's this impetus, I think, from the higher world, or just my own sense to do these subtle bodybuilding programs, because that actually is what lasts, you could say forever, but definitely beyond this life into other lifetimes. It's, Robert Gilbert taught this a lot, and also Samuel Sagan, this idea. It's really the only thing you can take with you. That might be extreme. There might be other things. You definitely can't take anything physical, but maybe other consciousness things. But this maybe is encapsulated in your consciousness. So it's the only thing that you actually can take, continue on into other lifetimes. It doesn't have to be an incarnated life. It could be in the inner world, but is your subtle body development. So there's a high return on investment, and it also affects this life, of course, making you more effective, balanced. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the purpose of having these sessions, and then also maybe emphasizing that in your spiritual practice. If anyone has seen that recent publication from the Vesica Institute, it was published after, it was just recently published, after Robert Gilbert passed. So I don't think they put his name as the author, but it's based on all his work. They kind of gathered together in a summary. And really, the main theme in that is subtle bodybuilding is really the spiritual goal, or the main thrust of our spiritual practice, which, yeah, it was just nice to hear it again. I mean, that was something I had adopted and kind of enfolded in these classes. And then the other thing just to mention before we start is why the intergalactics. It can be done with, you don't need to really work with any spiritual beings. They can just assist us, like angelic beings, spiritual beings. And the intergalactics tend to have a specialty or an emphasis in my interaction with them in accelerating subtle body development. So that's sort of why the theme here is with the intergalactics. But you could invoke, any of the higher beings, or in addition to the intergalactics, other beings that you work with. They kind of can accelerate you. They're a little like a coach, but actually also a builder. They actually build the subtle bodies while you're meditating. They can't do it alone. That's why it's somewhat limited to just only do transmissions, thinking that maybe that will be enough to build your subtle bodies. It's a little bit, I think the metaphor, at least my understanding about, the coach who gives you a really good program, but you have to actually go do the practice, fits. But while you're doing the practice, like while you're meditating, higher beings can definitely help accelerate the carving of, or the forming of your subtle bodies. But you would need to be, kind of be the main energy kind of doing those practices. All right. Any questions or comments before we start? Okay. Well, this will be about 45 minutes. And again, this is focused on the blossoming of the heart. So there'll be different phases, mostly focused on the heart center, subtle body building development, and kind of downloading the patterns that we can help accelerate our own building of that. And of course, that has, I didn't mention all the functions that then emerge out of more what they call crystallized subtle bodies, or more developed subtle bodies. So we can go over that also in later discussions. So we're starting our first transmission in the intergalactic subtle bodybuilding program on blossoming of the heart. We're starting with the blast of the InterGalactics level 1 frequencies to relax and center your system. And now we're channeling the InterGalactics level 1 blast to cleanse and then energize all your subtle bodies. That includes your physical, etheric, emotional, mental, causal, spiritual, and divine subtle bodies. Now we're formally beginning the intergalactic transmission on blossoming of the heart center. In this first deepening cycle, we're working with the intergalactic energies in a quantum or open fashion, adjusting, clearing, and fortifying all our subtle bodies in whatever way they need. And now the intergalactic transmission energies are here to open and stabilize the first six petals of the heart. In the Rosicrucian teachings, these six petals are already open through humanity's evolution. So we're just bringing them fully online and stabilizing that development. Now, the intergalactic energies in transmission are coming across to start the process, lay down the blueprint to fully awaken all remaining 6 petals of the heart. We may be in the process of already opening or fully opening these remaining 6 petals. And now the transmission energies are activating our heart, laying down the blueprint pattern to send that pink prana, pink gold prana from the heart up to the head centers to fully awaken the head centers. And now we're making the energetic connection through the central channel from the heart to the belly center, laying down the blueprints and patterns to strengthen that connection. Now the transmission energies are coming across to clear your central channel, connecting all three centers. Now the intergalactic energies and frequencies are coming across to lay down the blueprint for humility and loving kindness. And now the intergalactic transmission energies are coming across to integrate your system. And that completes the first transmission in InterGalactics Subtle Bodybuilding Blossoming of the Heart, focusing on the heart center. You can gently but firmly come back to your physical body now. And when you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and snap your fingers. Great. Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed the transmission. Now we're going to do a couple practices more just to build the subtle bodies. I'm going to first work on the connection between the three centers using our breath and working particularly in the central channel. And so it's a four-part breathing practice. And then what we'll do is we'll meditate in the center of the heart afterwards. And we'll kind of repeat this breathing practice in the beginning. And this is the one of the direct ways to focus on more the interconnection as well as building the three centers, but really the interconnection through the central channel. Some of this people might be familiar with, maybe the sequence might be new. So we're using the breath. You can put the tongue on the roof of your mouth. And the first sequence, basically you exhale your air. You want to be inside the central channel, at least feel the energies go, your awareness and intention go up and down, kind of the center of your body. The central channel is described, we'll just use it here loosely as like a tube, maybe the size of like this, from your perineum in front of your spine through the center of your head to your crown. So the first seven kind of breaths, you're going to inhale, lightly squeeze your perineum, or kind of they call it the mula bandha, and bring your the energy up from your root chakra or the perineum through the central channel to the crown. And then the exhale, you bring your awareness from the crown down to the perineum. So you're basically moving up and then down. So up on the inhale, down on the exhale, up on the inhale, down on the exhale. And so we're going to do that 7 times. And then the next seven, you don't have to kind of rush to next seven, but then just now put your awareness at the heart. And then you're going to inhale. You're just going to go up to the center of your head. And then on the exhale, you come back down to your heart. Inhale from the heart to the center of the head. You can pause 1 or 2 seconds and then exhale down to the heart. Pause 1 or 2 seconds. So we're going to do that 7 times. And then the next one is we're going to start at you can either start at the perineum or four-finger wisp below the navel. That's sort of the center of the, lower dantian or hara. But now we're going to kind of emphasize this belly-heart connection. So the heart to the head was the head-heart connection. So then starting at the belly, you inhale up to the heart. Hold for 2 seconds or 1 or 2 seconds. Exhale down, either back to the four-finger wisp below, or you can go all the way back to the perineum. And inhale up to the heart and exhale down. Inhale up, hold for 1 or 2 seconds, exhale down. Okay, so you're doing 7 of those. And then finally, we kind of do the overall connection again for 7 times. So inhale from the perineum up to the crown, kind of making the connection between all three, and exhale down. Inhale up, and then exhale down. You do that for 7 times. So altogether, it's 28 times. So first 7 is all the way through. Then the next 7 is heart to head. Then the next 7 is belly to heart. And then we do kind of the overall again for 7. So that will kind of clear, energize, make the connection between the centers through the central channel. This is the idea of the coordination between all three centers. And many people here have been building the centers, like if you've been doing the pillar meditation, even just in these sessions, or maybe you're doing that also on your own. And then for this one, we're going to just bring our awareness to the center of the heart center. And we're just going to meditate there. Maybe they will have remaining, this altogether, maybe, 15 minutes or so. So we want to present a shorter practice so that you could do it every day or do it on alternate days if you're already doing other things like the inner fire practice. But then just put your awareness at your heart. Just focus on the stillness, the silence, not trying to get anywhere or do anything or even build your subtle bodies. Just let go of all the purposes and be in the present with your focus at the heart. And then we'll end the meditation after that. Any questions about that? Okay, I also will guide the breathing. People can do it since you know the numbers, the pattern, um, and they're fairly straightforward. If you want to, go slower and pause longer than I do, that's fine. I'll just do it for the recording and also if people want to have something to practice with. And we'll start off with an invocation. The invocation allows those higher beings to help us build our subtle bodies when we're doing these subtle body practices. You can also use your own words and invoke for the beings that you work with. And I'll just do a general invocation to the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to the Christ being, InterGalactics, the Holy Spirit, our holy guardian angel, Archangel Michael, and to our higher self. We thank you for your great, great blessings and for this opportunity to build our subtle bodies in a accelerated fashion. You can put the tongue on the roof of your mouth. You're right behind your front teeth. You can put your hands facing up on your lap or knees. So we're going to first focus on the 7 breaths in the entire central channel. So exhaling your air, focusing in the root chakra, perineum, you inhale up to the crown, hold, exhale down through the central channel to the perineum, hold, inhale up, hold, and exhale down, hold. You can gently squeeze the perineum if that helps in moving the energy up. Inhale up, you squeeze, sending the energy up. And exhale down, release the squeeze. Inhale up, lightly squeeze the perineum. Exhale down, release the squeeze. It can also just be intentional, it doesn't even have to be physical. The squeezing. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold at the top of the crown. Exhale down to the perineum. Inhale up, hold, and exhale down, hold. Okay, you can just relax. We're going to do the next 7 breaths. It's from the heart to the center of the head. And the general principle with this practice is whenever you're moving and inhaling, you can squeeze to kind of almost like squeezing like a bottom of a toothpaste tube, the energy going up. And then when you exhale and come back down, you can release the squeeze. And it doesn't even have to be very physical. It could be just a really gentle, more in intention than it is a physical squeeze. Whatever kind of gives you the best feeling. So tongue on the roof of the mouth. We're focusing now at the heart center. Exhale your air. And inhale up to the center of the head through the central channel. Hold. Exhale down. Hold. Inhale up. Hold. Exhale down to the heart. Hold. Inhale up. Hold. Exhale down. Hold. Inhale up. Hold to the center of the head. Exhale down. Hold. Inhale up. Hold. Exhale down. Hold. Inhale up to the center of the head. Hold. Exhale down to the heart. Hold. Inhale up. Hold. And exhale down to the heart. Hold. Okay, just relax. You can move your body a bit just to feel comfortable, let the energies settle. You can note if you feel any tingling or more sensation, maybe in the centers. So our next series is from the four-finger wisp below the navel, which is the center of the hara or belly, lower dantian. We're going to inhale up to the heart and then exhale back down. So we're building that lower connection from belly to heart or heart to belly. So tongue on the roof of the mouth, exhale your air, focus in the belly region. Inhale up, hold at the heart, be very gentle, relax, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, and exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, and exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold. Great. Just relax. And now just to coordinate all three or as a kind of concluding loop, bringing it back to where we started. We're going to start from the perineum or root center, keeping our awareness in the central channel, breathing all the way up, back to the crown, holding, then exhaling back down to the perineum. So tongue on the roof of the mouth, exhale your air, inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold, inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold, inhale up, hold, sorry, exhale down, hold, inhale up, hold, 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 and exhale down, hold. And now gently put your awareness at your heart center. If you can gently put it inside the central channel at that level, that would be most ideal. We're just going to spend a few moments here building the heart. And the focus is more on the stillness, the silence, and the awareness. And that completes our meditation. Since we're already within our body, you can just refocus, maybe move your fingers and toes. We'll say a short thanksgiving to the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, the Divine Mother, to all our spiritual guides and teachers, to the Christ being, the intergalactics, the Holy Spirit, Archangel Michael, our holy guardian angel, and to our higher self. You can also use the words of the beings you've connected with, assisting us in our subtle body development. We thank you for your great, great blessings. We dedicate this development to serving all beings with thanks and in full faith. Okay. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and snap your fingers. Wonderful. Um, First, we have some time here. If anyone either wanted to share or had any questions or wanted to share anything on our discussion or on the transmission or this meditation. How is that, Carol? Hmm.
Um, I just wanted to say, Jean, I'm just really grateful that you bring this to us. I think at the moment on Earth is the time for ascension, and it's a big time to open our hearts. So it's wonderful to have this transmission from the intergalactics, and I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks. Yeah, I've been, doing some Arcturian work today, and of course, we've been doing other sessions together, like the inner fire, but the intergalactic frequencies did feel quite different, uh, very strong for in my perception when they're coming through. But yeah, and I mentioned this service piece. A lot of traditions, dedicate are very intentional. People have studied Tibetan Buddhism or Buddhism, of course, Christianity, and also this Rosicrucian path in that Vesica sort of book. They really did emphasize that, the reason you're building your subtle bodies, which lead to spiritual capacities and gifts, is in service to other beings. And that is the heart-centered approach. Um, and our intentions, they kind of set the whole path. Uh, so, and like in Tibetan Buddhism, it's towards, or they call it Mahayana Buddhism. It doesn't only have to be from Tibet, but that you're becoming awakened in order to help others awaken. And Hema?
Well, you um, disjointed if you like, but they never are. It's always relative. I've lost sight of what my mortal bodies are supposed to be doing. You had mentioned that we carry most of what we learn with us, and that's an entire gargantuan universe worth that you've uploaded in us. So these aren't, small matters at all. In fact, everything that we've received from you is to be carried forward. Heaven knows into what lifetimes or whatnot. But you had said, in service, I seem to be finding myself simply currently from the conscious weirdness that might be going on with stuff, just basic. 3D stuff, family and that. But not we are performing some form of service, even if it isn't so specific. If we ask to be with the white, the brotherhood, and the withdrawn order, Lord, I'm not certain as to what I'm ingesting. I don't care to make any sense of it, but I am aware that it's of consciousness. I'm not, perhaps unwilling in slight ways to not um, acknowledge, if you like. Um, Goodness, what was I trying to say? um, there's some question of the way things are going so far, that they're letting out, that we are that the world's going to come to know the beings that we're communicating with, perhaps, or other forms of levels of these beings with lights and the like. As we come closer to that point where, there's some self-harm at the extinction kind level.
Oh, yeah. Oh, was that a question?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But no, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying, yeah, I think the beings are always there assisting us and helping us and then even just like you said, our presence when we're in that essence identity, when we're connected to our eternal awareness, that creates a certain vibration that helps others just through the morphic field, even not if you do anything physically with them.
You mentioned that there was a time when I couldn't hear the toning, and I hear the toning now. I hear different forms of, so that's quite a revelation, quite interesting. It has been for a while, but I didn't think I've mentioned it to you.
Mm, that's great.
Thank you so much for today. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Blessings.
Thanks. Yeah, so well, maybe I'll conclude here, and we'll be meeting on Monday, this coming Monday, for the next session, and we'll continue sort of building on this, the breathing, this particular form of breathing, even though it's very straightforward. There's some advanced portions to it, but it's really the interconnection. So we're going to talk about that, like why that's important is how these centers work in a coordinated fashion, in our daily life and spiritual path. All right. Well, I'll get the recordings out. I just want to thank everyone for bringing down the great energies and looking forward to continue to work with the intergalactics and accelerating the subtle body development and downloading the patterns and practices. All right.
Thank
See
you,
you.
Jean.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jean.
thanks, Carol.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr.
Awesome.